Welcome to AltFinance, the funding frontier, the podcast where each episode is a step towards demystifying the world of alternative finance. I'm your host, Jason Feimster, founder and CEO of Moonshine Capital, and I'm here to guide you through the intricate dance of dollars and deals that propel businesses into their next phase of growth. Today, we're embarking on a journey through the realm of revenue-based financing, a dynamic funding pathway that's shaping the future of business growth. Whether you're a startup on the brink of discovery or an established company poised for expansion, understanding the ABCs of revenue-based financing could unlock potential you never knew existed. In this episode, we're diving deep into the world where traditional lending meets innovation, where your revenue speaks louder than your credit score, and where flexibility reigns supreme over fixed monthly payments. So grab a seat, sharpen your pencils, and let's unravel the secrets of revenue based financing together. Time to explore how this powerful tool can amplify your business and why it might just be the funding solution you've been searching for. In today's business climate, where innovation is rapid and growth trajectories are often unpredictable, traditional funding methods can sometimes feel like a square peg meets being forced into round holes. That's where revenue based financing, or RBF, comes into play. It's like a breath of fresh air in a room that's been a little too stuffy with convention. Let's paint a more vivid picture of RBF. Imagine your business is a boat in a sea of financial options. Revenue based financing is not the anchor that holds you in place, nor is it the oar that moves you forward with great effort. It's the sail. It harnesses the power of your revenue winds, both strong gusts and gentle breezes, to move you along your growth journey. The way revenue based financing works is that investors provide capital to a business in exchange for a percentage of ongoing gross revenues with a payment cap. Typically, these payments adjust monthly, reflecting the true performance of the business. So if you hit a slow patch, your payment to the investor reduces, which can help ease the cash flow pressures that often accompany traditional fixed repayment schedules. But it's not just about easing cash flow. It's about partnership and alignment. In revenue based financing, the investor's return is directly tied to the company's performance. This inherently creates a vested interest in the company's success, which is a somewhat different dynamic than traditional loans, where the lender's return is fixed regardless of the company's performance. What's more, revenue based financing taps into the potential of various revenue streams, whether it's direct sales, subscriptions, or contracts. As long as there's incoming revenue, there's a way to structure an revenue based financing agreement. This has made it an especially attractive option for businesses in the digital age, such as SaaS companies, online retailers, and app developers, who can predictably track and forecast revenues. However, the application of revenue based financing is not limited to the tech space. It has broad appeal. For instance, consider a manufacturing company with consistent orders or a service provider with a retainer based client relationship. These businesses can leverage revenue based financing just as effectively. And let's not forget history. Revenue based financing isn't a new idea. It's been around in some form for quite some time, particularly in industries like entertainment and energy. What is new is how it's being adapted and applied. The proliferation of data analytics and real time financial reporting has enabled a more sophisticated approach to revenue based financing, making it more accessible, more manageable, and more aligned with current business models. As we move forward today, we'll dissect the nuances of revenue based financing agreements, discuss how it's helping businesses scale without the weight of debt or dilution of equity, and reveal how it's revolutionizing the way we think about funding business growth. So stay with me. As we progress through today's episode, we'll explore how revenue based financing is reshaping the way business thinks about funding, and why it's becoming a go-to resource for savvy entrepreneurs. When it comes to the nuts and bolts of revenue-based financing, the mechanism is straightforward yet ingenious. If your business generates regular revenue, especially from sales, then revenue-based financing can be a viable option. Here's how it typically works. First, a revenue-based financing investor provides your business with capital upfront. Instead of a fixed repayment schedule, you agree to pay back that capital plus a predetermined fee through a percentage of your monthly revenues. This percentage doesn't change, but the actual payment amount does, as it flexes with your revenue figures. Now let's talk about terms. Terms can vary, but commonly businesses might pay back between 5% to 20% of their monthly revenues. The total repayment amount usually caps at 1.5 to 2.5 times the original investment, ensuring that you're not paying indefinitely. And here's where it gets interesting. The repayment period isn't fixed. It continues until the full amount owed is repaid. If your business does well, you could pay off the investment quickly. On the flip side, if sales slow down, your payments stretch over a longer period, which can ease financial pressure when times are tough. Let's delve deeper into navigating revenue based financing agreements, as this is where the strategic decisions happen. Navigating RBF agreements requires a keen eye. It's crucial to understand all the terms laid out in the agreement, such as the revenue percentage, cap on repayment, and any other covenants or performance milestones you must meet. When you're presented with a revenue based financing agreement, it's like being handed a map with multiple routes. Each clause and term represents a path your business could take, and your job is to choose the most advantageous route that leads to growth, not into the weeds. What do you look for in these agreements? First, focus on the revenue percentage. This is the portion of your monthly revenue that you'll pay to the investor. It needs to be sustainable. If it's too high, it can strain your cash flow. But if it's too low, it might not provide the investor with enough incentive, potentially leading to higher total repayment caps or additional covenants. Speaking of caps, the repayment cap is your next checkpoint. It dictates the maximum amount you'll repay over the life of the agreement. A lower cap means less long term cost, but it could also mean a higher monthly revenue percentage. It's a balancing act, and the right balance depends on your revenue predictability and growth prospects. And don't overlook the covenants. These could include financial health ratios, minimum revenue thresholds, or other performance metrics that you must maintain. Breaching these can have consequences, so it's crucial to ensure they're within your business's capabilities. One more thing to consider is the duration of the agreement. While there's no set end date, the average duration can provide insight into the investor's expectations. A longer anticipated duration could mean the investor is prepared for a longer term relationship, providing more breathing room for business fluctuations. Lastly, let's talk about the exit options. Some revenue based financing agreements include buyout clauses, allowing you to pay off the investment ahead of schedule under certain conditions. This can be beneficial if you expect a significant increase in revenue and want flexibility to minimize long term costs. As we navigate these agreements, remember the goal is to secure funding that supports your business's growth without imposing undue strain on its operations. It's about finding a partner who shares your visions of success and is willing to bet on your business's future revenue. With its flexibility, revenue based financing can be particularly attractive for businesses with high margins and strong recurring revenue streams. However, it's not a one size fits all solution. Coming up, we'll explore the advantages of revenue based financing and why it might be the lever to catapult your business forward, or perhaps why a different funding method could be more suitable for your unique situation. In the landscape of business funding, revenue based financing shines for several reasons. let's explore the advantages that make revenue-based financing not just viable, but a preferred option for many entrepreneurs. First and foremost, revenue-based financing is celebrated for its flexibility. This flexibility manifests in the repayment terms, which adjust according to your monthly revenue. For a business with seasonal fluctuation or one that's on a high growth trajectory, this adaptability can be a significant advantage over traditional loans with their rigid repayment schedules. Other advantages is the speed of access to capital. In many cases, revenue-based financing agreements can be structured and funds dispersed much quicker than traditional loans, which means you can react to the market opportunities with agility. This is critical in today's fast-paced business environment where opportunities can be fleeting. Moreover, revenue-based financing preserves ownership. Unlike equity financing, where you give up a portion of your business, revenue-based financing allows you to retain full control. This is a massive boon for founders who want to keep their company's vision undiluted and hold on to the value they've created. It's also worth noting that revenue-based financing often requires less stringent credit requirements than conventional loans. Since the financing is revenue-based, the focus is on the performance of your business rather than solely on the credit scores or collateral. This opens up funding opportunities for businesses that may not have long credit history but have proven revenue streams. Now let's consider the impact on future funding. Revenue-based financing does not exclude you from pursuing other financing options down the line. In fact, it can be a stepping stone, helping to establish a track record of repayment that can bolster your profile for future financing rounds. Lastly, there's the alignment of interest. Revenue-based financing investors are aligned with your business's success because their return is directly linked to your revenue. This creates a partnership dynamic where the investor may offer additional support and resources to help drive your business forward. These advantages make revenue-based financing a compelling choice for businesses looking to scale, pivot, or simply maintain operations without the constraints of traditional debt or the dilution of equity. It's a tool designed for modern business, offering a nuanced approach to financing that celebrates and capitalizes on the potential for growth. With these benefits laid out, it's also crucial to understand that revenue-based financing is not a silver bullet. It comes with its own set of challenges and considerations, which we will delve into next, ensuring you have a full 360-degree view before deciding if revenue-based financing is the right path for your business. Having outlined the clear benefits of revenue-based financing, it's time we navigate through the challenges and considerations that accompany this form of funding. It's important to look before you leap, and in case of revenue-based financing, this due diligence is crucial. Firstly, the cost of capital can be a challenge. While revenue-based financing doesn't require giving up equity, the percentage of revenue paid out can accumulate to a higher cost of capital over time, especially if your business experiences rapid growth. This is a key consideration when evaluating the cost effectiveness of revenue-based financing versus other funding options. Another consideration is the impact on cash flow. Even though payments adjust with revenue, they do represent a continuous outflow of cash. Businesses need to manage their operations and growth investments carefully to ensure that they can sustain these payments over time. Also, there can be limitations on the use of funds. Some revenue-based financing investors may impose restrictions on how you can use the funding, which might not align with every strategic move you plan to make. Understanding these restrictions upfront is essential to ensure they don't hinder your business objectives. There's also the aspect of financial reporting. Revenue-based financing often requires more frequent and detailed revenue reporting to investors. This increased transparency can be beneficial, but it also requires having robust financial systems in place to track and report revenue accurately and consistently. And let's not overlook the potential for misalignment. Well, revenue based investors' returns are tied to your revenue. Their appetite for risk may differ from yours. It's crucial to ensure that the investor understands your business model and growth strategy to avoid any conflicts down the line. Additionally, while revenue based financing is flexible, it's not infinite. There is usually a term within the agreement where the capital must be fully repaid, and understanding this term, along with the implications of an early repayment or what happens if the business is sold, is vital. Finally, businesses must consider the scenario where revenue projections are not met. Since revenue based financing payments are a percentage of actual revenue, if your business underperforms, the duration of the repayment will extend, which could impact long term business planning and further investment rounds. In short, while revenue based financing offers an attractive alternative to traditional loans and equity financing, it requires a thorough understanding of its nuances. Businesses must approach revenue based financing with a clear strategy, ensuring that it aligns with their financial health, growth plans, and long term vision. Armed with the knowledge of both the benefits and the challenges of revenue based financing, you're in a better position to determine if it's the right tool for your business's unique needs. Up next, we'll examine the ideal candidate for revenue based financing, helping you to further assess if your business fits the profile for this innovative funding mechanism. Having a deep understanding of both the merits and considerations of revenue based financing, we now turn our attention to identify the ideal candidates for this type of funding. Not every business will fit the mold for revenue based financing, but for some, it could be the key to unlocking their growth potential. So, who stands to gain the most from engaging in revenue based financing? Let's sketch the profile of an ideal revenue based financing candidate. Firstly, companies with high gross margins find a particularly good fit with revenue based financing. When you have a strong gross margin, the percentage of revenue you commit to repaying the investment has a less significant impact on your overall cash flow. This makes it easier to manage the repayment while still investing in growth activities. Another hallmark of an ideal revenue based financing candidate is recurring revenue. Businesses with subscription models or long term contracts that provide predictable monthly income are prime candidates. The reliability of this revenue stream provides assurance to both the business and the investor that repayment is sustainable. Scale is also a factor. Businesses that are scaling rapidly can benefit from revenue based financing because it doesn't require giving up equity during critical growth phases. This can be especially attractive for founders who want to retain control and benefit from the full value of their growth. Additionally, businesses that have a clear use for the capital, such as a specific growth initiative or a proven customer acquisition strategy, can leverage revenue based financing effectively. The investment from revenue based financing can fuel these initiatives directly, leading to an increase in revenue that aligns with the repayment model. Furthermore, companies with a strong online presence and digital sales have an advantage when it comes to revenue based financing. The ease of tracking and collecting digital revenues makes the repayment process straightforward, which is appealing to investors. It is also important that the business has a solid track record. Even though revenue based financing doesn't focus exclusively on credit scores, having a history of stable revenue generation and responsible financial management is crucial. This history provides confidence that the business can manage the revenue based financing agreement effectively. Lastly, businesses with a clear vision for the future and a strategic plan for growth are ideal candidates for revenue based financing. This vision and planning demonstrate to investors that the business is thinking long term and has a roadmap for success, which is exactly what revenue based financing investors want to see. In essence, the ideal revenue based financing candidate is a business that demonstrates predictable and growing revenue, has high margins, and has a clear plan for how the capital will be used to drive further growth. If this sounds like your business, revenue based financing could be an avenue worth exploring. As the financing landscape continues to evolve, so too does the profile of businesses that can benefit from revenue based financing. In our next segment, we will explore how revenue based financing is influencing the future of business funding and what trends are emerging as a result. As we stand on the cusp of a new era in business financing, revenue based financing is not just a trend, it's becoming a cornerstone in the future of funding for businesses that prioritize agility and innovation. Let's look ahead and forecast how revenue based financing is shaping what's next for entrepreneurs seeking capital. The future of business funding is being driven by the need for more tailored and flexible financial solutions. Traditional debt financing and equity investments have their place, but as businesses evolve, so too does the need for a more adaptive approach. This is where revenue based financing is stepping into the limelight. Revenue based financing's future is bright for several reasons. It addresses a gap in the market for businesses that don't fit the traditional lending criteria or those that want to avoid diluting equity early on. With the rise of the digital economy, more companies are generating consistent online revenues, which aligns perfectly with the revenue based financing model. Looking at market trends, we're seeing a significant shift towards revenue based financing among tech companies, particularly SaaS providers, due to their recurring revenue models. But it's not just tech companies that are benefiting. E commerce, service based businesses, and even traditional industries with digital revenue streams are turning to revenue based financing as a viable funding option. What's more, investors are increasingly drawn to the scalability of revenue based financing. They appreciate the potential for higher returns linked to a company's performance, which can be more appealing than fixed interest payments. This performance link encourages a partnership approach with investors potentially providing strategic support to help businesses grow, further aligning the interests of both parties. We're also witnessing the emergence of specialized revenue based financing funds and platforms that streamline the process, making it easier and faster for businesses to secure financing. These platforms leverage data analytics to assess a company's revenue potential, to structure agreements that are mutually beneficial. As we think about the bigger picture, it's clear that revenue based financing is not only here to stay, but is also poised to expand its influence. It's a reflection of a broader movements towards greater financial inclusion, where more businesses have access to capital they need to thrive, regardless of their size, credit history, or collateral. However, with this growth comes the responsibility for both businesses and investors to engage with revenue based financing wisely. It requires a clear understanding of the financial models, a commitment to transparency, and a strategic approach to growth. For businesses that can navigate this landscape, revenue based financing represents a powerful ally in the quest for success. The future of revenue based financing is dynamic and promising, offering a glimpse into a world where financing is more intimately connected with a business's actual performance. As we continue to track its trajectory, it's an exciting time for businesses ready to embrace this modern approach to funding. And with that forward looking perspective, we'll transition to our next segment where we open the floor to you, our listeners. Your questions and insights are up next, shedding light on real world experiences with revenue based financing. We've navigated the ins and outs of revenue based financing together, and now it's time to turn the microphone over to you, our listeners. Your curiosity fuels this show, and your insights often shine a light on the nuances of alternative financing that we may not cover in our main discussion. Let's delve into some of the questions you've sent in. First up, we have Erica from San Francisco who asks, if my business has a slower growth period, how does that affect my revenue based financing agreement? Great question, Erica. In slower growth periods, the beauty of revenue based financing is that your payments decrease since they're a percentage of your revenue. This can give you some breathing room to strategize and push for growth without the pressure of a fixed loan payment hanging over your head. However, remember that it is also means the term of your repayment could extend, which is something to factor into your long term planning. Next, we have a question from Jamal in Atlanta. He writes, is there a risk of overcommitting my revenue to revenue based financing payments? Jamal, that's a critical question. The key to revenue based financing is finding the sweet spot in that revenue percentage commitment. It should be a figure that's manageable and doesn't stifle your ability to operate and invest in growth. It's a balancing act, and sometimes it requires negotiation with investors to land on a mutually beneficial percentage. Now, let's take an insight from Chloe in Toronto, who shares revenue based financing was a game changer for my e commerce business. It allowed us to scale our advertising, spend, and grow monthly revenues by 250%. Chloe's experience is a testament to how revenue based financing can fuel growth initiatives, especially in the e commerce space where marketing directly correlates to sales and revenue. And we have another insight from Raj in New York, who says revenue based financing helped us avoid diluting equity early on, which was crucial when we eventually sold the business. Raj's point highlights the strategic advantage of preserving equity for future transactions, which can be especially valuable in an exit scenario. Keep these questions and stories coming. They provide real world context to our discussions and help all of us learn from each other's journeys in the world of alternative finance. As we wrap up this segment, it's clear that revenue based financing is not just a financial tool. It's a pathway to growth that requires careful thought and strategic application. Whether you're considering revenue based financing for the first time or looking to refine your existing agreements, it's crucial to weigh the advantages, understand the challenges, and learn from the experiences of others in the business community. With your questions and shared insights, we're building a collective wisdom here at AltFinance, the funding frontier, that's invaluable for navigating the ever evolving terrain of business funding. As we draw today's episode to a close, let's reflect on the journey we've taken through the landscape of revenue based financing. We've unpacked the mechanics of revenue based financing, highlighted its flexibility, and discussed how it aligns with the rhythms of your business. We've identified the ideal candidates for this innovative funding model: businesses with high margins, predictable revenue streams, and those poised for growth. We've also navigated the complexities and considerations, understanding that while revenue based financing offers many advantages, it demands a strategic approach and a clear eyed view of your business's capabilities and goals. And through your questions and insights, we've seen a tangible impact of revenue based financing on businesses across the spectrum, from e commerce to tech startups, demonstrating its versatility and power as a tool for growth. Remember, the world of finance is not one size fits all. Each business has its unique trajectory, and the beauty of alternative finance, the very essence of alt finance, the funding frontier, is finding the right fit for your journey. So, whether you're on the verge of seeking funding or simply arming yourself with knowledge for the future, take these insights, weigh them against your situation, and approach the funding landscape with confidence. I'm Jason Feimster, and it's been a pleasure to explore the ABCs of revenue based financing with you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with your business, because here at the frontier of funding, the only limit is how far you're willing to go. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode of Alt Finance, the Funding Frontier, where we'll continue to demystify the world of alternative finance together. Farewell for now, and may your ventures be prosperous and your growth unbounded.